What is up, and welcome to the Dynasty. Listen to me. I almost said Dynasty Vipers having you right here. You're messing me up. Dynasty League Football YouTube channel. I am at Calvin and Hobby, and I am so excited to be joined by Mr. Matt Donnelly. Literally, none of these shows would even be possible. I wouldn't be on this YouTube channel if it wasn't for this man sitting right here to my left. I'm going to embarrass him so much today because he does not like to talk about himself at all, and I'm going to praise him and tell everybody how great he is. I'm happy to be joined by him. I'm going to introduce him to you like for real in just a second, but the show today, it's number 32. It's the last one. This is our team preview series. We're wrapping it up. You saved the best for last. Yeah, number 32 right there. Save the best for last. We're going to talk about the Raiders, talk about this offense. Who's going to lead this team in targets? I mean, we think we know, but like, is he healthy? Is he going to be with the team? We got a lot of questions. How about rush attempts? We think we know there too, but like brought in another guy. There's competition there. We'll talk about all of those things and more right after. PJ mentions it right here in the chat. Might as well go ahead and say, yes, absolutely. We are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the best mustache in fantasy football. It's very rare that I see somebody with a mustache better than that. And in fact, the other day, I think it was Nando that said it doesn't even look real. Like you might have to mess it up a little bit to make sure everybody knows that it's not fake. So, but I'm joined by Matt Donnelly. He's with the Dynasty Vipers. Dynasty Vipers are where I came from in this. So pumped to be joined by Matt. Matt, tell everybody what's going on with you. Wait, you're on mute.
No I know way. I had to do that on purpose, just to get a little bit of a homer sake here. Stare into my mustache, stare to the stash. It's mesmerizing. It really distracts you from what I'm actually saying. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a little bit of the lipstick on the pig. That's kind of the mustache on the Donnelly. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to go with that. It's good times. We just finished up a show here, jumping on this one. I caught a little bit of the Jacksonville one. I seen you had Minnesota on right before that. Made sure to throw on the Jack Tatum here, number 32 for show 32. Plus white makes it reflect a lot nicer and the lighting works a lot better that way.
And yeah, it just makes the mustache pop, no doubt. So glad to have that. And, the other thing that you're doing that I just really encourage everyone to go check out, been a part of it, the Behind the Grind series. It's genuinely one of the best things that's out there right now. A lot of interviews with some great people, including some DLF people. Ryan McDowell was on that. There's been a lot of great, just you name a guest, Matt has talked to them. How much fun has that series been this offseason?
Well, Calvin, you know as well as I do, you get in some of these chats and you don't even want to ask the questions. You just want the story to go. We've hit the whole ESPN crew, the Matthew Berry, Stephania Bell, Mike Clay, Daniel Dopp, Soppy. I always want to say Soapy. Soppy. Yeah, Kyle Sopp. Yeah, we're good. You get everyone in here. It's all your favorite fantasy football analysts there. You name it. We've had them on the show so far. And if you name them, we haven't had them on, we're getting them on because we've got our next 3 shows that I could think of off the top of my head are John Hansen, Dan Harris, and Jeff Manns. So we're talking some of the big heavy hitters here. The whole series has been that way. And Calvin, I know you appreciate this as much as I do, but you get the guys like we're going to have Hansen coming on here on the 23rd, but the Bob Harris, the Paul Charchin. We get these guys from when it was a wild west of fantasy football in the early 90s. You hear these stories. It's like getting out the old marshmallows and the chocolate. We're getting ready for a campfire and some s'mores here because we're going to hear some history of fantasy football and how it really was founded. Because it really was the Wild West at one point, and there wasn't a whole lot on it. Now you look at it, it's a global thing. It really has. Not only has the National Football League taken off, but fantasy football has taken off. And I think the NFL has really taken off because of fantasy football. I think fantasy football has influenced the game as we know it today.
Definitely goes together. And, there's a lot of things we already got some comments in the chat that we're going to get to here that goes along with our first topic. So we're thinking about the storylines, camp battles. We're going into the first preseason games. We've already got some, training camp, a few weeks of that in. And then a couple of questions here. Monty asked about Darren Waller. What's up with that? So anything you know about his situation, go ahead and let us know. And then, of course, a lot of Brian Edwards talk of being the what T.O. and Randy Moss would be if they had a baby or something. What's going on with there? What are you paying attention to in Vegas?
You know what? Well, we'll start off. Let's kind of talk about questions as I kind of came here and talk about a little bit of Darren Waller. Don't worry about Darren Waller. He's got a minor injury right now. The team is taking it slowly with him. He doesn't need to prove nothing in camp. They get these reps to Morrow there. They've got a bunch of tight ends right now in camp. I'm looking at the depth chart here right now. And you got Morrow, you got Derek Carrier, you got Matt Bushman, you got Nick Bowers, you got a guy, Alex Ellis there as well. So you're going to see an extended look at the guys. You know Morrow, what he can do in a small sense. He can fill that role where he can catch a few passes. Maybe a Jason Witten type player is what you expect from Morrow, except a little bit more offense at this point of his career from where Witten was when he became a Raider.
Right.
Derek Carrier, he's a blocker. That's basically what his role is to come in there and block. Matt Bushman out of BYU, he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on too because, you know, a few years ago talking Debbie and whatnot, he was a guy that kind of came on a lot of people's radar as someone who could possibly come in and do the trick in the National Football League. We never seen him materialize, but we'll see how that college career kind of stunted him a little bit at the end. He started off hot, slowed down. We'll see if he can pick it up where he goes here. So we'll see at the tight end position. But Darren Waller, he's still the guy. He's still going to get all the targets. He still has Derek Carr still has eyes for Darren Waller. Don't kid yourself. He ain't going nowhere. He is where that offense runs through.
PJ with the comment here. Chunky seems like Foster. I think he means Chucky. I'm pretty sure we're talking
Chucky,
about the head coach of the Raiders here, John Gruden. Foster Moreau out of where? What college?
Some bum college down in Louisiana.
LSU, baby. That's right. So yeah, I like Foster Moreau as well, but more of a goal line guy. I mean, if Waller's not in there, this offense changes a lot.
It does. It definitely. You got to remember, this is a top 12 offense last year. If you look at the numbers, we'll probably get into that a little bit later. You look at who they had last year. You got Darren Waller, exceptional. Derek Carr, completely underrated player. I mean, is there another quarterback that takes as much crap as him? I know Matt Stafford took a lot back in the day. Kirk Cousins gets a lot. But, you know, Derek Carr gets a lot of unwanted, unnecessary, negative fanfare for the job that he does. Look at who he had last year. Henry Ruggs, Zay Jones, Nelson Aguilar, who was an outcast at one point, rejuvenated at one season. We got one season out of him. Let's pump the brakes there on what Nelson Aguilar did. He had a good year. We'll give him that, but 1 year. You look at what he had to work with, and Josh Jacobs, this was a top 12 offense. And the names are not who you would expect a top 12 offense to be. So yeah, we'll see how that goes here. But like I said, and of course, like you said, everything comes through Waller. Waller takes all that attention. Waller works that underbelly. That's how Nelson Aguilar was getting open. He was able to stretch the field. But now we talk about this, and we're going to get to these battles here. They've got some weapons there on offense that, if they can develop properly, could make this even better than what they were last year.
Eagle Dan coming in here. Is Brian Edwards the next T.O.? There was that ridiculous report that he looked like Randy Moss, but maybe more like T.O. Like that was somehow, better. Listen, Brian Edwards, I'll toss this out. He played like 15 games or something last year, or 12 games, and only had 15 targets. I might have those two numbers reversed. He didn't get a lot of targets last year, at ceding way to Nelson Aguilar and some of the other likes that you mentioned there. But outside of Darren Waller, who we know is going to be the guy getting targets, could Brian Edwards be the second most targeted player?
I think there's a very strong possibility that he's going to be the second most targeted player. We're talking about a guy. You got to remember, when you look at Player Profile and all these other websites that kind of talk about him, he is a legit candidate. You talk about that breakout age, which is so important for wide receivers. He broke out at like 17 years old. He was breaking out before his first hair on his chest. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a guy who came out of nowhere in 2016 with South Carolina, had 44 receptions, 590 yards with a 13.4 yards per catch at South Carolina. Can you name the quarterback there? Probably not. It was probably Hayden Hurst. I don't know who he was. You know what I mean? Hayden Hurst is tight end. He played pitcher. He was everywhere. You know, I don't know who that tight end, the quarterback was there, but there he was. And then in 2017, we've seen that go up again. 793 yards, 64 receptions. 2018, much the same, 55, 846. 2019, 71 receptions, 816 yards. He gets knocked for not having a 1,000-yard season in South Carolina, but he was consistent and he did it at a young age. There's no reason not to believe that he can't translate some of that skill to the National Football League. I think that's what the Raiders are banking on. Now, they did technically take him after Lynn Bowden Jr. in the draft. I think he came one pick after. But he's the guy that actually they kept before sending the other one off to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at it, and Derek Carr has already mentioned that he likes Bryan Edwards. He hasn't gone off and said, I like Henry Ruggs. He says, I like Bryan Edwards. I trust Bryan Edwards. Behind Darren Waller, I trust Bryan Edwards. Now, does that make him T.O.? Does that make him Randy Moss? I don't know. But you're talking about a guy who's 6'3", 215 pounds. He's a big target, guy you can look for in the red zone there. I think he's going to have a much better second season than a first season. I'll go that far. I don't know if he's going to borderline wide receiver 2 for fantasy, but I'll throw it out there. I think he's good for, let's call it 64 receptions and 950 yards and 6 touchdowns this year. I'll go and I'll throw that stat line out.
So we can get to a couple of these next. Sometimes this is easy. Obviously, the answer for this is Darren Waller. But let's talk about Henry Ruggs as we talk about these wide receivers, right? Because we got Ruggs, we've got Edwards, got John Brown, who there's reports about running with the second team. So interesting. Talk about that a little bit. And then everybody forgets Hunter Renfrow exists. Like, he's still on this team too. How do you think this sorts out as far as targets behind Darren Waller?
Well, Hunter Renfrow had the most targets behind Darren Waller last year. You know, he had 56 receptions. He had the 77 targets. He was part of that offense. I think you could expect, if we're talking targets, I think Hunter Renfrow is probably going to see the second most targets, probably not the second most yards, but the second most targets is definitely there. Now, you're going to see, like I said, we mentioned Edwards. We're high on Edwards. We think he's going to be able to take that step. He hasn't yet. But 15 targets, 11 receptions. You mentioned, I think, those numbers a little bit earlier. If he can get a portion of Hunter, you're replacing Nelson Aguilar. I think Aguilar had something like 82 targets and 48 receptions. Right. So I don't have the numbers exactly.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Here, but
you nailed it.
Yeah, but like I said, when they did the draft, what they've been building for Derek Carr, they went out and got Waller from Baltimore. Then they've also gone off and they've drafted Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, and Hunter Renfrow all around the same time. That's what they've wanted to do from the three receiver set. That's where they want to go. They want to go one tight end, 3 receivers, throw Josh Jacobs in the back, maybe bring in Kenyon Drake. We're going to talk about that dynamic a little bit later. And then sprinkle in a little Zay Jones, sprinkle in a little John Brown. John Brown is going to be an interesting one because he had a pretty good year at Buffalo. He's been very solid. He hasn't been nothing great. They're hoping he could give them the value that Nelson Aguilar gave him last year. I think that's what the hope is. But I think if you want Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards to be the breakout guys on the wide receiver position, having someone like John Brown, that veteran presence in behind him, I think is going to help both those players going forward. Plus, you all got John Brown. If things fail with Henry Ruggs as a field stretcher, I think John Brown fills that role more than he does Bryan Edwards on the other boundary.
Let's talk about the running backs that you mentioned there. And we had a comment from PJ, why doesn't Gruden like Josh Jacobs? It does kind of seem like that a little bit, bringing in Kenyon Drake. It does seem like he's always trying to find somebody else to fill that role. Josh Jacobs from your favorite college in Alabama. So is Kenyon Drake, actually, interestingly enough.
And so is Bo Scarborough, and so is B.J. Simmons, and all these other guys they're bringing in here at some point. We're through that program. So they're doing something very specific in that backfield. Let's call it the way it is. But we know from the Mayock and Gruden era, it's basically Clemson and Alabama and sprinkle some other teams in there just for fun.
How do you think it shakes out? Like, I mean, obviously, they brought in Drake for a reason. Have you been able to figure out what that reason is yet?
I think it's just to give him a little bit more competition, to add some more weapons out there. You look at Josh Jacobs last year, 273 carries, 1,065 yards. He found the end zone 12 times on the ground. That's not going to change. And everyone's like, well, they don't want to throw to Josh Jacobs. They're not going to give him the ball. He still had 33 receptions and 45 targets. It's not like he was ignored. Now, he hasn't had a single third down reception in his career yet. That's the one that kind of baffles me. He has not caught a pass on third down since coming to the National Football League. So that's kind of interesting. But the cool part is you think about Josh Jacobs, you think, well, Gruden hates him. He was top 5 in touches inside the 5-yard line with 18 last year. The only person he trailed was Kenyon Drake's 21 attempts inside the 5. So we're talking, it's crazy. It really is. So what's that dynamic going to look like? Well, I think they want to spread the ball. I think they want to create mismatches. That's what the game is these days. I don't foresee Kenyon Drake cutting into Josh Jacobs' touches as a runner, and I don't see him as a passer. Everyone thinks he's going to take away these passes. He's not Jalen Richard. He's not Theo Reddick, the guys they've done in the past. In fact, I don't have Arizona's numbers definitely in front of me, but I'm pretty sure Kenyon Drake's passing numbers were very similar to what Josh Jacobs had last year. I think Josh Jacobs may have had more receptions than Kenyon Drake. You might want to pull that up and just confirm that. But
we don't
if this shows anything like the other one, there's no fact checking going down. In fact, I could be just mumbling numbers off, and no one's actually going to check them during the actual course of the show, which is fantastic. Chat room, please don't get any ideas as we're going.
Bob in the chat though, so there might be some fact checking. I'm not sure. Bob,
I see Mike. Mike might just do it out of spite too. So. But you look at there's definitely room to, like I said, top 12 offense last year, and you weren't getting this production out of that wide receiver group. For me, that's crazy. And you look at, we talk about Henry Ruggs, 26 receptions, 43 targets. That's not going to cut it for a guy you spent a first-round pick, let alone drafted in front of Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and all these other names that we're going to hear about his entire career. He is going to get the Mitch Trubisky treatment unless he can step it up.
That one hurts. Yeah, Josh Jacobs did get 45 targets last year, which is really is interesting. It's more than I think I would have thought, where Devontae Booker got 21. So it does raise the question of how much, do they not like throwing the ball to Josh Jacobs and they wanted to bring somebody in? That's why they got Drake. I guess that's part of what you worry about if you want to invest in Josh Jacobs. He still costs a decent amount, even in Dynasty.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. Listen, if you're looking at a startup right now, I think Jacobs is going as RB20 right now. RB20. Are you kidding me right now? RB20? He finishes RB8. Maybe the only other running back that gets more disrespect is David Montgomery of the Bears, who finishes RB4 last year, who we're talking about as RB21 or RB19. They're in the same range. We got to stop the hate. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for Josh Jacobs. The dude is 23 years old. 23 years old, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and you want to bury him because of Kenyon Drake? Kenyon Drake could barely hold off Chase Edmonds, who could barely hold off Eno Benjamin, who could barely hold off Jonathan Ward. In fact, I think Jonathan Ward might be the guy in Arizona when it's all said and done. So who is Kenyon Drake now, other than an Alabama Tide? Roll Tide.
It's true. Mike asked the question, can Henry Ruggs become more than a decoy? You mentioned the targets and the catches there. But like you said, first round pick, they want to get something out of him. Like, does this become a situation where they start to force the ball to him a little bit more to try and justify the pick?
I think, I don't know if they're going to force him the ball because that's not Derek Carr's MO. Derek Carr, for all his warts and all his praises, he's kind of turned into that check down kind of guy. So that's kind of where we're at with him as far as throwing it out. But he did hit Nelson Aguilar on some deep bombs last year. And I think that's what they want to do with Henry Ruggs. I think Henry Ruggs can run some slants. I think he can run some ins. I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think you can get him more involved in the offense. But especially when you got a guy like Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller eating away at the underbelly of teams' defenses, forcing teams to step up. You bring in Josh Jacobs, you kind of split maybe Kenyon Drake into the slot and have him run some stuff underneath. That should open up for John Brown and Henry Ruggs on those deep shots. Turn on the Kansas City Chiefs tape. That's how they should be using Henry Ruggs. He absolutely lit it up against Kansas City Chiefs in that one game. That was about his only big game that we had all season. But I think that's how they want to deploy him going forward. And I think that's how he should be used. Soften things up, hit him deep, make him run some slants. He's fast. He's hard to run with. And if he can get an inside position on a slant or something in, he has an opportunity to take that and make some huge yak.
Yeah, Henry Ruggs going off the board right now, according to DLF's most recent ADP, as the wide receiver 49. Brian Edwards going as the wide receiver 63. So Henry Ruggs going right next to a guy. I'm going to make you choose. Would you rather have Henry Ruggs or Jalen Reagor?
That's like having me choose between one of my children.
Yeah, that's why I did it.
I'll do it because I'm okay with doing that. I definitely have favorites, but no. I really like Jalen Reagor. He was when we talked about the rookie draft, he was one of my top rookies. I had him above Henry Ruggs coming out of the draft, coming out of Texas Christian University. Man, neither one of these guys has done what we hoped they would do. It's tough. To really knock the Eagles was based on that offensive line last year and the struggles that they had and the continuity that they did not have because they went through something like 13 different offensive line combinations. So I don't think we got an opportunity to see Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts sit back in that pocket comfortably and survey the field. Every time that they had success, Jalen Hurts was on the run, throwing a pass. Carson Wentz was scared and throwing whatever he could up in the air. I think he was just under shock the whole season. So I would say I would take Jalen Reagor over Henry Ruggs right now if I was going 1-for-1 based on the fact that, the Eagles offensive line is coming in healthy. I believe the Raiders line will be fine, but I don't know if we're even talking about it, but Rodney Hudson, gone.
Talk about
Trent Brown, gone. The other guard, gone. I'm kind of drawing a blank here. It'll come back to me in a second.
Yeah, but to that point, typically, and is true this season too, it does seem like the Raiders always happen to draw what's projected to be a tough run defense schedule. And it's the case this year. It was the case last year. It seemed to have proved out true when people are projecting that. And with an offensive line that's kind of banged up, that does make you a little bit worried. Not banged up, but an offensive line that is diminished from last year. Probably, it makes you a little bit worried, right?
I would say they're downgraded from last year based on, Gabe Jackson. Gabe Jackson was the other guy I was thinking of. Gabe Jackson, but Trent Brown, he never really materialized there. He's a big dude. He's a monster of a man. If I stood next to him, I bet you I'd come up to his belly button. That's how big this dude is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. But he basically lost out that position last year even. I think we were looking towards then. Brandon Parker was playing a little bit of tackle there. You look at this offensive line. They've still got Colton Miller, who I think is one of the good young left tackles in the league. They've got Richie Incognito. Say what you will about him. He's still a bully. He'll still punch in the mouth. They let Rodney Hudson go for a reason. They have Andre James there ready to step up. They paid him a lot of money, so he better perform. And he's had an opportunity. He's played a little bit of guard. He's played some different positions there, so he's got that ability. Denzel Good kind of slides into that right guard position. And then on the other side is that first-round draft pick, which they got hammered on. The selection of Alex Leatherwood, I think at pick 17, took a lot of heat. But this is a guy who could play either tackle position. He could swing in and play guard. A lot of people thought maybe he'd play guard more often. And it looks like the Raiders are going to give him a shot here at right tackle. So if, he can perform serviceable, because right behind him is another guy's name I can't even pronounce, like Patrick Amawa or Amea or something like that. I don't pronounce names right, so we're not even going to try. But you look at this, and it's not a terrible line. I wouldn't say it's a top 10 line. Like the Raiders line last year going into the season, I would have said it was a top 5 offensive unit. Yeah, I would put them in about the middle of the pack this year. So not horrible. But when you look at what they're doing, the teams in that division, you got Joey Bosa there. You got Frank Clark coming off in Kansas City. You got Jones there in Kansas City eating up the middle. Denver's always going to give you a heartache with Von Miller and what they can do off the edges. So you need to make sure you got your bookends on both sides there. Colton Miller is going to have his hands full, as is the young rookie, Alex Leatherwood, because all these teams can bring pressure off either side.
Yeah. So this next question has to do with sleeper, and this does kind of seem like we've already touched on who probably is the right answer to this is Brian Edwards, who, according to the most recent DLF ADP, is going off as a wide receiver 63. That feels too late.
It does, especially when you're looking at Henry Ruggs. I guess the better question is, who would you rather, Henry Ruggs or Bryan Edwards? One's going at 44, one's going at 63. I would probably be, if I'm doing best ball, I'd probably go Henry Ruggs because the home run threat's always going to be there. But I think if I'm talking any other type of format, I think Bryan Edwards might be my guy. And you look at this, I don't think there's a whole lot of potential for sleepers. I don't think there's anyone who's going to really come out of this lineup and be like, oh man, there's some good value. I don't think Bo Scarborough ain't going to come back and give you those couple games they gave the Detroit Lions last year. I don't think that's going to happen. So you look at this, who could possibly be that guy? Henry Ruggs, not really a sleeper. We're already talking about him. Bryan Edwards, his hype train's picking up here right now. He's almost getting the CD Lamb hype, right, as far as training camp goes. Hunter Renfrow, no one talks about him because him and Mac Jones and me, if we stood in the line and covered up our facial hair, you wouldn't be able to tell who's who. You know, we're all built the same. But the rest of like Zay Jones, maybe Zay Jones is that sleeper. Maybe he's that guy that can come out of nowhere and give you some value. Now, defensively, I kind of like looking at this latest depth chart that came out. Tanner Muse, the former safety / linebacker hybrid out of Clemson, he's getting rolled into that strong side linebacker. That might be a guy to talk about in IDP. Mike, he's throwing Trevin Moehrig out there. Moehrig was my top safety coming out of the draft. He was my number one ranked guy. I don't think he's that big of a sleeper when it comes to it. We should know who he is. Foster Moreau, if anything were to happen, it's like handcuffing your running back. If you're going to handcuff a tight end, Moreau might be one of the guys you want to get in there.
What about, now you've already gotten on to us and, probably me for disrespecting Derek Carr. What about Marcus Mariota to answer this question? He came in, filled in pretty well last year. It does kind of seem like, Gruden's keeping him around. I don't know if this is one of those things where if there's some struggles early on, could we see Marcus Mariota?
I don't think so. I think Carr's definitely got his spot there. But I'll kind of answer your question with another question. If you don't have two quarterbacks, do you have one in today's game? You look at some of these teams that really struggled. If their starting quarterback went down, look at the Colts right now. It looks like Carson Wentz is going to be able to make it. But you're talking about Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger. Now, Sam Ehlinger out of Texas gives them the Colts a little interesting dynamic with his running ability, much like Mariota did for the Raiders with his running ability. But do either one of these guys give you a chance at the playoffs? The Raiders are a borderline playoff team. They were in the hunt last year until they fell off like they normally do late in the season. But like if you're talking about team, I think they're definitely going to be a 500 team, 17 games. So they're going to be like 8-9, 9-8, maybe throwing a 10-7, 7-10, somewhere in that 7-10 to 10-7, somewhere in that area. If they can get in that ballpark, they could be a playoff potential wild card team. Now that AFC is going to be tight. It's going to be contested all year round. That division, the AFC West, is absolutely insane. You talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. They are what they are. We all know what the Chiefs are. The Chargers are a young and up-and-coming team with a great defense, a second-year quarterback, some weapons all around. The Denver Broncos ran into all kinds of injury problems, and if they can get some decent quarterback play out of either Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, whoever comes in there, they're as good as any team in that division. They can beat anyone. The Raiders were one of the only teams that beat the Chiefs last year too, and they played offense. They went point for point with them in both games. So it's the Wild West is the AFC West. We can all presume that the Chiefs are going to win that division. It's not like the NFC West where you can legitimately make a case for any of those teams in the NFC West. We know the Chiefs are the top team, but they've been beaten within that division. I think who's their other loss? The Chargers might have beat them last year too. I can't remember, but that AFC West is an interesting division, how it's going to shake down. Do you think Derek Carr 22 ranking and redraft is disrespectful? Yeah, I think it's disrespectful. If you're talking about, depending on the type of format you're in and the league you're in, like take the Scott Fish Bowl, for example. When we were talking about that, where it penalizes you for interceptions, if you're in a league with higher interceptions or you lose points on incompletions, yeah, Derek Carr is a top 12 quarterback in those type leagues. I think he's probably realistically in that 13 to 16 range, 13 to 17 range. I think that's where Derek Carr belongs. I think he is an upper quarterback too. That's going to give you some pretty solid weeks. You're not going to get the low lows. You're not going to get like Ryan Fitzpatrick may outscore him 1 week, but I'll guarantee you Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to totally throw 4 picks in one game and give you a big -3 at some point. Derek Carr will give you 15 points right across the board all season and give you a couple little peaks there. Like his floor is one of the safest floors among quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's true. He doesn't get talked about in those terms, but 4,100 passing yards is more than I would have thought for him last year. Nobody, I think, realizes how that's up there. I mean, that's a good number.
We're talking 4,100 yards. He's 348 attempts, 517 attempts, 348 yards. That's like over. Like his rating was a 101.4 passer rating. That's a good rating. You know what? That's an above average rating. You've got yourself above average quarterback play coming there. You got an offense where they had a 1,000-yard receiver, a 1,000-yard rusher, a 4,000-yard passer.
Mm-hmm.
What's not to like about Derek Carr except the fact that he's Derek Carr? You know what I mean? We like to hate on him. And you know what? Even Raiders fans, we do it. We pile on him as much as we get an opportunity to. But 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's not turning the ball over. This team was just in the playoffs back in 2016 before he broke his leg. And we're talking about them being a Super Bowl contender at that point before the broken leg. So now we get our hopes up every year, but we'll see. House money.
Yep. So, okay, the Raiders last year, like you said, were contending for a playoff spot. They had a lot, there was a lot of momentum for them, right? They were a team on the rise. They beat the Chiefs, like you said, one of the few teams that beat them, but finished 8-8. Let's talk about the 2021 17-game season. What's the team record in 2021?
I'm going to be optimistic here. I'm going to take them at 10-7. I'm going to put them on the higher end of my predictions. Now, I think they're going to finish above 500. I think their schedule plays out fairly well. I don't got it right in front of me. I'm going to see if I can pull it up, and we can kind of talk through this here a little bit.
Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Miami, Chargers, Bears, Broncos, Eagles before the bye.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule. Let's be honest. It's a tough one to get off the kick. But we thought that last year. We thought their schedule last year was going to be like, oh, man, this is a murderer's row. And it was. It was one of the toughest schedules. It was a top 5 toughest schedules in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at it. Can they beat the Ravens? Can they? I think they could. We're in Vegas. We're in the home opener. Different ballpark, fans coming back, energy going to be through the roof. If the players can keep that kind of down and get ready to come into, I think that's a win. The Steelers in Pittsburgh, probably a loss, I'm going to go with. Miami, back into Vegas. I think that's going to be an interesting match. We'll have a couple games, a tape here on whoever we – yeah, thanks, Mike. Don't you worry. If we get the Colts, we'll be hammering on them all year. Miami, that's a game that could go 50-50 either way. So, let's give that a win anyway because it's in Vegas. The Chargers game, these AFC games, I think they split this division straight across the board. I think they finished 4-4. I think they beat at minimum 4-4. I think they beat Kansas City at least once again. I think they beat the Chargers again. And I think they beat the Broncos again. Now, can they take 2 from one of those teams? That's where it's going to get interesting. So week 5, they've got Chicago, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton. It's an afternoon game, so I'm not too like Andy Dalton might actually scare me because it's not a primetime game. But I feel good about that game against the Bears. I really do. I think that could be a win. The Denver Broncos, like I said, could split. The Eagles, I'm not worried about the Eagles this year. I think they could be a good team. I was just talking to Joe Dolan about this, and this show will come out next Monday. The Eagles wouldn't be they wouldn't surprise you if they finish 11-5, and they wouldn't surprise you if they finish 5-11. That's the range of outcomes for the Philadelphia Eagles is through the roof. So give them a win. I think they beat the New York Giants in New York. Kansas City, we said the split. Cincinnati, I think they can beat them. Dallas will be interesting. I think that might be a loss in Dallas because that's on, I think, Thanksgiving, right? 11/25. Is that your guys' Thanksgiving down there?
Oh yeah, if you don't know, Matt is Canadian, and you guys don't you have a similar holiday.
Yeah, we got Thanksgiving, but it's like in October.
Yeah. So
I
do think that is that's Thursday. You're right. I was stalling to fact check you there, which by the way led to maybe the best comment we've gotten in any of these shows. I love that Bob said he stopped trying to fact check you because it's always kind of true. Whatever you're trying to fact check, you is always kind of true.
I've never been 100% wrong. I'll put it that way. I've never been 100% wrong. But, we talk about the next two games. Dallas, that's definitely a winnable game. Washington's a winnable game. I like what Washington's done. They're a really good team. I love that offense. But it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. Which Ryan are you going to get, right? Kansas City, we talked about Cleveland. I think that's probably going to be a loss in Cleveland because I love Cleveland this year. Denver. And, of course, we got the Indianapolis Colts, which they're actually going to pound on because there's no offense in Indy. So we'll give that win to the Raiders going away. Probably a good 30-point spread difference on that one. And then they close off with the Chargers at home. So, I think 10-7 is definitely very possible. 9-8 is probably a safe floor. I really do believe 8-9, 9-8 is going to be where they're at. 10-7 is what I'm putting down.
And with that, we are not only done with the Raiders, we are done with the NFL. We've done all 32 teams right before we get some preseason real football. I don't know if we're going to call what happened in the Hall of Fame game like real football or not, but like we get real football kind of in the preseason coming up here this weekend.
Hey. Was Charles Woodson there this weekend at the Hall of Fame? Then it was real to me. It was real to me, man. I feel like doing that WWE thing. It was real to me.
I love it. I so appreciate you coming on and doing the show, closing it out with you here. And it's been a fun series. It's been a lot of fun to have a chance to sit here and talk to you about the Raiders. Make sure you're checking out everything that Matt is doing. As you said, you got some really good shows. Talk a little bit about the other shows from some of the other folks that are with the Vipers, though, that you have. Go ahead and plug that.
Yeah, absolutely. This I can do because, we have the same slogan over there, commitment to excellence. No, I just saw that out there. I throw it out there. But, Major Caldwell, he's hammering off on some great things. He's got a series coming out. He's going to start building it towards. He's going to the Expo this weekend. So if you see him there, hit up Major. He's probably going to get you on the film. He's going to get in your face. He's going to talk some football. He's going to record it. It's going to come out on part of his new show. So make sure you get that going on there. You guys know Tara Roberts. She's still doing some stuff with the Vipercast, but she's doing some stuff over at Fantasy Pros too, a little TikTok action that you're going to want to get in on. Obviously, Calvin, you do some wonderful things here at DLF. I know Mike and Roberto were talking about maybe a little bit of Debbie love coming down the pipeline. We're looking at some different options there with Capology. Awesome. So we got some great ideas kicking around there. The Vipers, the guys are always putting out some great content. The more they write, the less I have to, which makes everyone happy because no one wants to read my writing, and definitely Jeremy does not want to be editing my writing. So,
and on Friday nights, we get fully tilted, right? We get fully tilted on Friday nights.
Oh, yes. We got a couple great shows from the Full Tilt crew there. Thomas and Jacob and Big Billy there. They come out with that, and then Tom Lai steps in with Thomas. They do the fantasy walkabout. So we got shows upon shows coming out there, and if you're into some jackass making fun of himself, I do have a solo series there that I try to put out as often as I can. Don't put the transcript on because the words that line up on the bottom of the screen do not match the words that you actually hear. Well, actually, probably do. They just don't make any sense when you actually look at the words. It's kind of muffled, and
I love it.
It's all right.
Matt,
but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Matt can't go anytime, without trying to be a little, take a little shot at himself. But I think everybody is starting to come on to the fact that you actually are really talented. You are good at what you do. If you're not already, you should be following him. Did you hit 3K yet?
I did pass the 3K. I'm at like 3,015. So the next step is 4K, right? That's the next progression.
Let's go. Let's get him to 4K.
Channel. We were doing good. We hit 401, but we dropped back down to 397. I think we're up to 399 on the YouTube. So make sure you plug that on. It's like YouTube.com/vipersnetwork.com or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure you could find it easy enough. Just look for mustache in the YouTube search and something will come up, I'm sure.
Follow Matt, follow the whole Viper crew. Definitely appreciate you being a part of the show. And hey, I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. This has been so much fun. I've had a blast doing it. Monty, thanks, gentlemen. And Aaron, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate so many of these guys that were in the chat a bunch, over the course of this series. I really appreciate all you guys and girls that have been doing that 100%. It's been fun. We got some in-season content that's coming out that we're in the process of working on. Of course, the Tuesday night shows, that I do with Tyler. Make sure you check that out.
Taco Tuesdays.
Taco Tuesday. That's right. Tyler and Cal on Tuesdays. I love it. I'm at Calvin Hobby. Make sure you follow me. also just look down below. Make sure the little thing that's red there says subscribed and not just subscribe. If it just says subscribe, hit the subscribe button, smash it, as the kids say. Hit the thumbs up button. Make sure that you are following along with everything that we do. Addison's on the channel all the time. The content as we get into season is going to be awesome. So make sure you're following along. Thank you for tuning into the series. Thank you, Matt, for coming here. You got one more thing?
Yes. Make sure you check out the DLF here, man. It is lit, as the kids say. And I'll see you all in Canton.